So, a challenge facing the international trading system is that different countries have different versions of what fair means. And if we apply this to carbon pricing, the EU wants imported products to have to pay the same carbon prices that domestic producers pay in the sectors where it's worried that those industries will go out of business. And the EU argues that it will be bad for global climate action if heavy industry relocates elsewhere, as it will incentivize more greenhouse gas emissions in less regulated countries. So that's sort of the fairness of my market, my rules. But there's another version of fairness which conflicts with this directly, and that is fairness as self-determination. The EU, after all, is a highly industrialized group of countries which have contributed quite a lot to greenhouse gas emissions. And if it imposes its own carbon price on everyone else, this is unfair, in particular to developing countries. And indeed, it goes against the foundational principle of the Paris Agreement, which is common but differentiated responsibility for developing countries. The WTO is the closest we have to an international referee. But the WTO can't actually answer the question of whether it's fair for one country to extend its domestic carbon pricing to another country's products. And that's because it's a heterogeneous organization with members that have really diverse views on this question. What the WTO appellate body or high court has done in the past is to develop legal tests to determine whether individual regulation in dispute treats products and services the same regardless of where they come from. And if it doesn't, is there a legitimate regulatory justification for this? This is kind of a simplified version of the foundational non-discrimination principle. But many countries have felt uncomfortable to the extent to which these and other legal tests that the appellate body has developed has actually constrained their domestic room for maneuver to the extent that one, the US, has effectively blocked the appellate body's continued functioning. So where does this leave us? We have fundamentally contested versions of what is fair and an international adjudicator that isn't functioning that effectively, if at all. If we simplify things again a bit, we can say there are two potential paths ahead, and one is a cooperative path where the EU perhaps decides that it won't charge some developing countries as much, or countries are able to resolve some sort of international framework for carbon pricing and cooperation. And another is competitive or trade war path, in which countries respond to what they see as an unfair measure by imposing more tariffs on each other.